that, yeah.
There it is.
And before we start again, Brandon, when I start, if it's possible, can we try again to give me permission to record? We'll try it just for a minute or two.
Yeah, sure. I can.
That way you are recording and I'm recording as well, but I'm
Could you,
recording separately.
could you record for me too, so I can hear it?
You have to ask permission to record yourself at the same time, or else you'll be recorded as part of the large Story Swap, which is fine too, but.
Yeah, as long as I hear it eventually, I don't mind.
So the whole event is recorded and it will be on the Storytelling Association of California YouTube channel. And
Oh,
you can
okay.
get to that by going to the SAC website, and there's a link to the YouTube channel. And all of our swaps are recorded and put on that channel. Swaps from all over California are recorded and put on there. There's quite a bit of material at this point. And there's some other events that are put up there as well. So it's a good resource. Welcome everybody to the April version, the April edition of the Do Tell Story Swap. Here we are, still virtual, but glad to be together in whatever way we can. I am Brandon. I'm your MC for tonight. And Meg Brown and Katie Mangan are the hosts and the co-chairs of the Do Tell Swap. We tell 5 to 7 minute stories, any kind of story, personal, folktale, fairy tale, myth, whatever you want, but we try to tell them without notes, without reading. We tell them from the heart. And of course, we do allow people extra time if they check with Katie in advance. And Katie can give permission to people with stories that are a little bit longer. Like I know we have a couple of those tonight, and I'm looking forward to them. So without any further ado, generally what we'll do is hear a few stories, and then at about the halfway point, maybe just a little bit before 8 o'clock or so, we take a short break and we come back and we introduce ourselves. And there will be a prompt for this evening, which should inspire a sentence or two, a very short story. And you can say where you're from, and we get to know each other a little bit that way. And then we'll make some announcements and then continue with the second half of our program. It looks like we've got a nice list, a nice roster of tellers tonight. And starting it this evening is going to be, let me find her, Sharon Elwell.
Okay. I'm trying to prep this for a liars contest, so I'm hoping that I'll get some feedback from you, because I haven't tried any of these before. All right. All right. I don't expect you to believe this story. I wouldn't believe it myself if it hadn't happened to me, and I've never had anybody believe me, especially not my poor husband, Richard, who suffered more than anybody else from the terrible affliction that overcame me. It started innocently enough on a sunny spring morning. He was huddled over the computer, working along, and looked up and said hi. And instead of replying, I was entirely out of my own control. Instead of speaking to him, I said, "Good morning, good morning." And he said, "Oh my, somebody's in a good mood today." And I couldn't stop myself. I said, "Zippity doo dah, zippity hey." And he said, "Well, I'm glad that you're so cheerful this morning, but I'm trying to get some work done here. And I said, but I feel a song coming on. And he said, oh, please take your song somewhere else. Little did he know that I could not stop myself from singing to the poor man. And he said, are you just doing this on purpose to annoy me? And I said, you're so vain. You probably think this song is about you. Well, by then, he had kind of shuffled me to the door and closed it behind me. And did I go away? Did I quit? I did not. I stood right there behind that door and sang, open the door, Richard, open the door and let me in. Well, it didn't get better from there. I knew that I was in terrible trouble. So I took myself to my primary care physician, and she said, I have seen involuntary vocalizations before, but never any that were just directed at one specific person. Let's get some tests done on you. And so they did an EEG and a CAT scan and an MRI and all those tests, and they couldn't find anything out of the ordinary. So she said, this is obviously a psychological problem. Let's send you to the psychologist. Well, when I got to the psychologist, he didn't listen for very long before he had his mind made up. And he said, oh, this is a clear-cut case of passive aggression. He said, your conscious mind may not know it, but your subconscious mind is harboring a lot of anger against your husband and possibly against all men. Well, I didn't listen to him anymore because that is completely ridiculous. I would never have anything against Richard. He is the world's greatest husband. He is intelligent and handsome and extremely wealthy. I would never do anything to cause him harm. But I couldn't quit singing at him. And after several days, he was beside himself and moved into the condo. Now, you would think that I would have quit there, but you'd be wrong. It was awful. I left a message on his voicemail. Ain't no sun up in the sky since my man and I ain't together. I called him on Ring Central and WhatsApp and FaceTime and Zoom and everything I could think of, Skype. Won't you come home, Bill Bailey? Won't you come home? Well, after a couple of weeks of that, his neighbors called me. They said that someone had called 911 because they heard him screaming. And they came and took him out saying, she won't quit. She'll never quit. She doesn't leave me alone. It was so sad. My poor dear Richard. Fortunately, I had plenty of money once I got the conservatorship to put him in a very nice facility where I'm sure that he'll be comfortable for the rest of his life. My own nerves were pretty frazzled at this point. I was more than a little upset. So I booked a luxury round the world cruise for myself. And while I was on deck on the very first day, a nice man came up to me and said, would you like to get a drink sometime? And I would have liked to say yes. But whatever it was that possessed me again. And I said, I'm just a girl who can't say no. And that's the end of that tale.
That was absolutely wonderful.
Sharon, you lie. There's got to be a song out there. You lie, you lie, you lie.
Lie.
Yeah, that was a tall tale. That was wonderful. Now, are you doing that for the 6 feet apart event?
Oh,
There's a liars event for 6. Do you know who's running?
oh, yeah. Yeah, I would like to.
Yeah.
But I just kind of thought I'd run it by you guys first and see if you thought it would be something I should pursue.
I think you should pursue it. Yeah. I sing a lot, but I sing to my dog. And I don't know what he thinks. I really don't. Thank you, Sharon. That was really fun.
Thank you.
And next up, please welcome to our virtual Do Tell stage, Vicki Ness. Hi, Vicki.
Hey there. So Sharon, did you write that? Oh, it's very cute. I liked it a lot. I'm gonna just try a story that I did for it's Earth Week Day month something. So flashing silver against the jade sea, a school of fish flashed in and out and in and out. And then they jumped up in the air and said, Mother Nature, look at us. Aren't we pretty? Back down into the water. Mother Nature, who was standing right there on the beach comparing shell designs, looked over and said, oh, aren't you pretty? Aren't you lovely? But one little fish stuck his head up and said, no, I'm not happy. No, I'm not happy. No. And she said, oh my goodness, so what's wrong? And he said, oh, I want to fly. That's what I want to do. I want to fly. That's why I'm here, because I have to tell you that I want to fly. And she said, oh, well, all right. I've never heard of a flying fish before, but I guess I could invent one. And so she did. And the ocean spray came up and covered the little fish. And before you knew it, there he is, sailing with fins that are wings. And off he goes, whee, whee. Oh, he was having such a good time. And she thought, I did good. So she went to redesigning the driftwood. When she heard, Mother Nature, Mother Nature. And finally she heard, Mom. Oh. She turned and looked and said, yes, dear. What on earth is wrong now? Oh, well, I want feathers. That's what I really wanted. I wanted feathers so I could fly over the water for a long time. Can you give me feathers? And she said, well, I suppose I can, but you're no longer a fish then. That's okay. Feathers. Okay, so she caused a breaker to come down on top of the fish, and all of a sudden, rising up out of it was the first cormorant, long 6-foot wingspan, elegantly diving this way and that, catching every breeze, and then making a needle-sharp dive into the water and coming back up. Oh, he was ecstatic. Oh, he just swooped and swerved, and he was going, wee, oh, this is the most fun I've ever had. Oh, I'm the happiest bird in the world. Mother Nature said, good, I'm very happy for you. I have work to do. And with that, she went to knit algae together for the tide pools. She was very busy. She had a lot to do, and it was getting to be mid-morning, and she was busy. And then all of a sudden she heard something going slip behind her. And she looked, and there's the cormorant dragging his feathers on the sand, looking very sad, waddling behind her. Oh, this isn't what I wanted at all. Mom, this is not what I wanted. Fix this, please fix this. Oh, Mother Nature hates to see her creatures miserable. So she took a deep breath and she said, well, what on earth do you want? And he said, oh, well, I would like very strong legs so that I could run. I can run. Oh, I'd like to run like a deer. Can you do that? But I want feathers too. I like feathers. They're very fun. I like feathers, but I want to run. Okay, she said, a bird that runs, that has feathers. Well, you clearly shouldn't be here, so let me think. And a sandstorm swept up, and before you know it, the sandstorm transported the silly little bird, boop, into the middle of the deserts of Africa, and the first ostrich was formed. Oh, he was so happy. Oh my goodness, he had long legs, huge feet, and he could run everywhere he wanted to go. And he ran circles around Mother Nature, and he ran off into the distance and disappeared, only to come back again. It's me, it's me, it's me. Look at my feet, look at my feet. Yes, dear. Oh, you're wonderful. Now I have to talk to the boab tree. So if you'll just excuse me for a minute, just keep running around. Now, we're good. So she went off and talked to the boab tree, which had quite a lot to say to her. And then she noticed a shadow over her shoulder. And she looked up and she was eye to eye with the silliest, ugliest bird in the universe, which was the ostrich. And his eyes were huge. Ah! I don't like this. Ah! I want teeth. I want to be fierce. I want everybody to be scared of me. I want big teeth. And I miss the water. And I miss the water too. Oh, Mother Nature said, all right, fine. But this is the last of it. And with that, the sand came up, and before he knew it, he was plopped down a Louisiana bayou, and he was long, and he had claw feet, and he had a snout that came out lined with teeth. A reptile eyes, and clothed in Mother Nature's royal colors of moss, lichen, and early spring greens. He was magnificent. And he swished his tail. And he showed his teeth. Oh, he was so fierce. Everything ran away from him. The egrets flew out of the trees. The fish darted away, and he loved it. Everybody's scared of me. Mother Nature said, okay, well, this is good. You're happy. You need to be happy because dusk is coming on and I have to polish stars. And so if you'll excuse me, I do have to leave. And I just want you to know that this is it. This is it. Okay, we're good. Okay, so, yes, I'm fine. Oh, I'm so scary. So she traveled herself up past the salmon and gray dust, up past the sun, past the new moon, into the stars, and she was polishing them. Each and every one gets polished every night, you know. When she heard, I'm gonna throw up. That's how bad I feel. I'm gonna throw up. Oh, you have to help me. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Mother Nature brought herself down one more time and looked at that silly alligator and said, you know, you're really a very beautiful and formidable beast. What more do you want? Everybody's scared of me. I don't have any friends. I hate that. I want my friends back. All right, she said, this seriously is it. No more after this. And with that, she kissed him on his snout, waved her arms, and a foxfire swamp fog covered over him. And when it settled, the first frog was created. And if you notice, frogs now start their lives as tadpoles, swimming like fish. And then they develop legs so they can get up on the ground and they feel absolutely comfortable on land. And they're predators. When they see swamp bugs, they sail through the air like birds, snap them up and land in the water again. And if you listen, early summer evenings, they're all sitting by the water, happy, pleased with themselves, except if you really listen, what you hear is, I wish I had hooves. I like hooves. I wish I was purple. Purple's a better color. And they say, she could have done better than this. And Mother Nature, for her part, is up in the sky polishing her stars. And in the early summer evening, she hears them grumbling. And that's when she knows everything is just fine. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Vicky. I could really see you telling that to a group of children and they shout out what they think the animal is as you, oh, that would be
Good idea.
so fun.
Good
Or
idea.
even adults.
Good idea.
Oh my goodness. That was really wonderful. Thank you. And you brought it all together. I didn't realize that a frog is such a synthesis of different,
And,
amphibians are so weird, of course. It's a
and
frog
yet
that
they
embodies
sit
them all.
yeah, and yet they sit around grumbling.
Yeah, and they grumble. That's right. Well, thank you, Vicky. That was really fun.
You're welcome.
So next up, please welcome to our Do Tell stage, Genevieve.
Myself. And then I'm supposed to request, I don't know, just pause recording, stop recording. I'm supposed to ask you permission. Have you given me permission already to record?
I made you a co-host, so you should have all the permissions and abilities.
Okay, but I think that's different than what I was going to ask for, but we'll work it out some other time. Because that's what we did last time and it didn't separate out. So, but that's okay. Let's just go. I don't want to take too much time. Okay. There's just a separate way to ask for individuals without being co-hosts to record themselves.
Okay, let me see if there's.
Can you not make me co-host and see if I can get that permission, that way to ask you again?
Withdraw co-host permission. There you go.
And now now let me see. Record. Okay, please ask the host to give you permission. So something should pop up for you saying to grant me permission.
Yeah, I don't see it yet. I have done that before, but
Yeah, I
nothing
know.
popped up.
No.
Okay, let me see if I can
Yeah, just take a.
allow to record local files. I'll see if that.
Oh yeah, host
I'm
allow
going
to record the
into
meeting.
settings. Okay, there
Okay,
you go.
okay, now recording. Perfect. That should do it. Okay, give me a second. Learn something every day. This is a story that I prepared for the moth last week, but I wasn't called. And the theme of the moth was books. It is said that if you walk into the home of someone you've gone out with and find no books, run. When I walked into Don's house after a lovely stroll in Golden Gate Park, I had no reason to run. His shelves were lined with books. Big books, small books, thin books, wide books, magazine-bound books, old books, new books, paper-bound books, and most of them were about the Civil War. But Don not only had his books, he had read all of his books, and he remembered them, which was fortunate because 10 years before we met, as a young man, he had lost his sight. He was a natural historian, and he regaled me with stories with such precision and such animation that I was utterly transfixed in listening to them. He'd guide me through battle after battle in maps he still vividly saw in his mind's eye. And sometimes he would ask me to bring down one of his cherished books and tell me just where to find a photograph or a portrait of someone who'd played a role in an event that he was describing to me: an officer, a soldier, a nurse, a young woman baking bread and taking water to the faint and the fallen. The war's moral conflicts, profound losses, and deep significance to the nation, which Don loved so dearly, seemed to be woven into the very fabric of his being. And over time, the stories became integrated into our life together as well, in many ways. We would travel to live reenactments where he could stroke the cold bronze cannons and heavy ammunition, clasp the brass buttons on woolen jackets, and feel the cloth and leather kepis, the caps that soldiers used to wear back then. And thus he would be transported to a time as real to him as the very grassy field on which we were standing. At home, we would play music of the period on my 1913 piano. He would painstakingly make out the tunes on his 1920s mandolin, though his fingers, numbed by his illness, could no longer feel the frets and its 12 closely spaced strings. Moved by the pathos of a war of brother against brother, such songs, "When Johnny Comes Marching Home Again," "Was My Brother in the Battle," or "Nearer, My God, to Thee," invariably brought glistening tears to his eyes. When I wanted to memorize the Gettysburg Address for a master's studies project, it was Don who made those 3 blistering days of battle in July of 1863 come to tragic and tender life for me. In President Lincoln's words, "The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here." Often, we would ride our tandem from home to Railroad Square in downtown Santa Rosa, where we'd sit on the old baggage cart, and I'd read him chapter after chapter of historical novels. We laughed together at my mispronunciation of unfamiliar names: Antietam for Antietam, and Appomattox for Appomattox. The last book we completed there was McKinley Cantor's Long Remember. It wasn't until years later that I realized just where the author had gotten that evocative title, Long Remember. We also spent many hours mesmerized by Ken Burns' stunning 9-part documentary, The Civil War, with its episodes from The Valley of the Shadow of Death to This Hallowed Ground, from War is Hell to The Better Angels of Our Nature. Don added infinite humanizing details as we watched the program, but where we most bonded was on hearing the wistful music of Ashokan Farewell play as the narrator read a letter that Major Sullivan Ballou wrote to Sarah, his beloved wife, only days before his death at First Bull Run battle. Sarah, my love for you is deathless. It seems to bind me with mighty cables that nothing but omnipotence could break. And yet, my love of country comes over me like a strong wind and bears me irresistibly on. Don wept. He wept from the deeply emotional context of the letter. He wept for not being able to see the images he had known and loved so well. And he wept because I swear he was remembering having been there. When he died, I wasn't able to dress Don in a Civil War uniform as I had envisioned. But I did put a soft ivory cotton country shirt on him that reminded me of the unusual uniform of the Zouave Light Infantry Brigade. Only once in our life together did he ask me, without expecting a reply, if I would forget him when he was gone. But no, it is today for me, as Sullivan Ballou then assured his Sarah. Oh, Sarah, I shall always be near you in the gladdest days and in the darkest nights. Always, always think I am gone and wait for thee, for we shall meet again. Those cherished books still line the bookshelves of what became our home. And I do long remember, long remember, long remember.
Wow, Genevieve, that was so beautiful. Are you going to be doing that at the genre tales for the historical stories?
Curious you should ask. No, the genre tales does spin off of it. The mention that I made about the young woman baking bread and taking water to the fallen
Oh, okay.
saint is a story he told me of a young woman named Janie Wade, who is the
Oh.
only civilian victim of the Gettysburg battles.
Of the Gettysburg. Mhm.
She was baking bread and a bullet came through her home,
Oh,
went through the front door, went through the kitchen door, and killed her.
mm. Wow. And that was a very beautiful story today, too. I mean, it had a lot of history in it as well. Thank you so much for that story.
Thank you.
I think we have time for a couple more. And let's see, now, Beverly, you're coming from New York. So it's much later for Beverly, but we're glad to have you. And so please welcome to our virtual stage, Beverly.
Okay. I have been drawn to the TV lately, watching the Ukraine war. And what hits me the most is seeing the mothers and their children on the train, putting their hands up against the glass and saying goodbye to their fathers or uncles or brothers, never knowing if they'll ever see them alive again. I can just imagine how they feel deep inside, having to show their children, which don't realize what's happening, to try to hide their feelings so their children don't get upset. Saying goodbye to someone is so hard. My father's name was Edward Nathan Schwartz. He was born and raised in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. He went to high school, but he dropped out and joined the Navy and served in the Pacific War, in the World War II war in the Pacific. My mother's name was Rebecca Schwartz Becky. She graduated and always wanted to go to college, but there was no money in her family. So she took a job as a state worker in the capital of New York, which was Albany. My mother and father both loved to dance. And they met at the Ukraine Hall in Albany. They were both Jewish, but everyone from the whole area went. My father drove an hour to get to Albany, and that's where they met and fell in love, in the Ukraine Hall. When they got married, my father needed a job, and he found a job in a shoe store, and he ended up working there for 39 years. My mother, who always wanted to go to college, worked her way up into the pool of secretaries that worked for the governor of New York at the time, which was Governor Rockefeller. When Governor Rockefeller's personal secretary left, he went over to my mom, which he had become friendly with, and said, "Could you be my personal secretary?" That's how good she was. Well, we grew up. They had 3 kids, me, Beverly, Bevy, that was my nickname, Paul, Paulie, his nickname, and Bruce, Brucey, nickname. He was 8 years younger than me. So if he was coming towards me, I'd be a little nasty and say, "Here comes the accident." So my mother and father wanted us desperately to go to college. No one in our families on either side had ever gone. So when I was in 4th grade and started babysitting, they opened up a savings account and every penny had to go there. And when I got my job after school, everything had to go there because they said, if you want to go, you have to want it and work for it. And I was the first one to graduate college, and my brothers followed suit. They worked really hard for us and actually built a home for us. And we had a dog, and they tried every activity that they could afford to make sure that we were brought up with things that they hadn't had. At 39 years in the shoe store, my father had health problems and had to retire. And my mother, she said, "Why don't we go to Florida and have a second childhood?" And so they did. They sold the family home without telling us. And about a month before they were leaving, they said, "Who wants this and that? We're leaving town." Wow. And they went and they did have a second childhood in Florida. So my mother, unfortunately, had to go to the hospital. She was 75. And they were going to give her a chemo treatment, I was told by my father. He couldn't explain what was really happening. 2 days later, he calls and said, "Mom passed away last night." I never had a chance to say goodbye. I never had a chance to talk to her. It really broke my heart. My father said, "That's okay. I'm still going to come visit." Now, my mother and father didn't like staying in Florida during the summer. So what they had done was in the summer, spring, and early fall, they were at my house. Then they go to Texas, where my brother had with all the grandkids for the holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas. And my other brother lived locally, so he saw them when they were living with me. And then when it was real cold, he was in Florida with my mother. She said, "I'm going to still travel around." And so he did. Now, he'd come and he had a great time. I dragged him all over the place. But when he was 79 years old, I noticed he was slowing down. He didn't look good. And my instinct said, he's sick and he's not telling me anything. One summer day in August, he said, Bev, I've called Harry. He was his best friend since he's been a little boy in Pittsfield. He's going to come drive here, and we want to go to my parents' gravesite. I remember the gravesite as a little girl being there, burying his parents. And I said, sure. So we took a drive, got lost, had to ask the police, and they escorted us to this old cemetery. And on my dresser today, I have a picture of my father next to his parents' gravestones. Well, I knew he was going to go down to Texas, and I said to my brother before Thanksgiving, something's wrong. I took him to a few doctors. They said he really needs tests to diagnose him. Would you do it down in Texas? And he said, sure. So Christmas ended. It was end of January. I was a teacher, and I was going to have a vacation in February, and I had a really nice vacation plan to go to the Caribbean and this and that. And my brother calls me. The phone rings. Hi. Oh, hi, Bruce. How you doing? Bev, we got his tests back. And there was silence. I said, uh-oh. He goes, Dad's terminally ill with cancer, and he's refusing all treatment. I said, can I come down in February? And he said, oh, absolutely. He said, but we all work. He's home alone all day. And at night, we do have sports activities for the kids. You'll probably be alone with him most of the week. I said, that's okay. So I flew down. Well, I had the best week of my whole life. My father and I talked, and I heard stories he hadn't told me. We talked about my mom and his family, and I learned so much from him. He loved to dance. And when I was a little girl, we'd put on the record player. My mother would dance with my brother. I would dance with my father, and the dog stood up and danced with my brother. Swear to God, that's the truth. And he taught me how to swirl around and do the, whatever the song was. And we put on Dancing with the Stars, and we got up that night and danced away and sang the songs they were singing on Dancing with the Stars, and we won that night. And then my father said, the noodle kugel Mom makes? I haven't had it since she passed away. Can you make it for me? So my brother bought the stuff, and we said, okay, well, we'll try to make it for tonight. And we put it all together by memory, and we took it out of the oven. It smelled just like it did with my mother. We got 2 bowls. My father said, let's have a sneak taste. Ugh. We didn't say a word. We threw it right away in the garbage. But we had the smell. That's what we really wanted. The week ended too fast. I knew I had to leave, and it was the day I had to leave. I put my stuff next to the door. What do you say to someone who you're not going to ever see again? I hugged him. Oh, I love you. And he hugged me back. We didn't say we'll see you soon. We never talked about his illness the whole week. I wasn't going to start then. Beep, beep goes the horn. My brother's in the car saying, hurry up, you're going to miss your plane. I'm saying, doesn't he realize what's happening here? I said, okay, I'm coming. And he looked at me, and I looked at him, and we just shook our heads. And I turned, gave him one last kiss, and I started walking towards the car. And all of a sudden I hear, Bevy, turn around, Bevy, turn around, Bevy. I thought something was wrong, and I turned around. And then he began to sing to me. When I was a little girl, I sat on his lap, and he would always sing to me this song. I love you, a bushel in the peck, a bushel in the peck, and a hug around the neck. Then he took his hand, put a kiss in it, and blew it at me. I caught it. And then I went, and he caught it. And we stood there looking at each other for a few seconds. And I turned around and went in the car and looked as long as I could as we drove away. And my father died about a month later. Now, the people of Ukraine are going through the same thing now, saying goodbye to the loved ones and not ever knowing that they'll see again. I'd like to sum up the whole situation of the world and what they're going through in this crisis of Ukraine and the war they're fighting. I'm going to repeat it twice. Jimi Hendrix, the songwriter, wrote this. There will be peace when the power of love is greater than the love of power. There will be peace when the power of love is greater than the love of power. Pray for Ukraine. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Bev. That was very touching and, of course, very relevant. So much better than a trip to the Caribbean, too.
Yeah.
It was very moving, and you told it very well.
I appreciate it. Yeah, my father would be proud of me.
Yeah, I think you would. So we've come to that point where I think it would be good if we took a short break. Katie, do you agree?
Yes, I agree. That would be great.
And 5 minutes or so, you are welcome to put your view, that upper right-hand corner, there is a little box with view, and you can put it in gallery mode. I don't know if you're too familiar with that. If you want to remain behind and just chat with other people who are doing the same. Others may want to take a quick trip to the bathroom or make a cup of tea or mix a drink. I don't know. That's up to you. And we'll come back for our second half, which reminds me, some of you joined after we had started. So if you're interested in telling, please let Katie Mangan know. You can certainly put something in the chat or just call out to her after you unmute yourself and let her know. I will be pausing the recording, and then everybody, Katie and everybody else, remind me to start it back up. That's always difficult for me. So here we go. I'm pausing. Welcome back, everybody, to the second half of our April edition of Do Tell Story Swap. And this is the point where we like to introduce ourselves. Every month we provide a prompt, and it's meant to be just very brief, but also an opportunity to interact a little bit and get to know each other a little better. And since it's April, we decided that we would share our memory of the best April Fool's prank.
Ooh.
And
Oh, God.
I started to think, and I never really participated. I never made any pranks. They were always kind of played on me. I remember my mother was a French teacher, and she taped fish to my back, which is something that the French do. And I really don't know why that would be an April Fool's thing, but I went to school with fish on taped to my back. So that's my memory. I also got a dog who was born on April Fools. And so I sort of feel like April
love the
Fools
date.
is with me every day of the year in a certain sense. But again, I'm Brandon. I am a high school teacher here in Santa Rosa, California. And since we've gone national, you have to say what state it is now. So again, that's in California because we have people from New York, and I believe Sharon's still in Washington. So I am going to pass it over to Ellie Shiva.
Okay. Are we going to go around the circle and talk about the
The
topic?
April Fools,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, because I thought maybe you were telling me to tell the story.
No, not yet.
I can't remember anything, either having them or giving them or seeing them, except I had a friend, a boyfriend, an adult boyfriend when I was also an adult. And he said once he took a wallet and put a string on it and dragged it through sort of like a bar on the
Oh.
floor. And he got beaten up. So I don't think he did that one again.
Sometimes the jokes don't go over very well, do they?
No, apparently, maybe it was his delivery. I don't know.
Yeah. That's great. Well, that was wonderful. And we have one of our co-chairs for the Do Tell Swap, Meg Brown.
Again, like the previous people, I don't really remember any pranks particularly, except for the very classic one where my brother put the salt in the sugar bowl and that kind of thing, Yeah, I was very suspicious of people who played pranks. So it wasn't encouraged by anything that I do. And I'm Meg Brown. I live in Forestville, California. So.
Very good. Thank you, Meg. No one's ever done the salt sugar thing for me. I imagine that would be alarming.
Makes everyone really mad.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
see there has been something added to the chat here about the paper fish, if you're interested in reading. So I guess my mother wasn't totally off base. It still seems very strange to me. So next we have Beverly in New York.
Okay, am I unmuted or can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Well, the only prank that was ever pulled was on me when I was in Girl Scout camp and we were in a tent at night and us little girls were in a circle and we'd go around and they were saying, oh, we're little Indians and we like each other or whatever, and they go and touch each other's things. And then you'd go to like the next girl and they would do it. And then it was my turn and they were laughing every time my turn came around. And they're hysterical after like the third, fourth time around. And I'm saying, what's so funny about me? What they were doing is they put lipstick on their fingers. And when they were touching my face, they were putting streaks of lipstick and I never figured it out. So finally a girl said, here, Bev, take a look in the mirror. And they showed it to me. So they got me. They pranked me. So that's my only thing that ever happened to me that somebody did something like that.
And of course, you were the only one that it was being done to.
Yeah, so that's why everyone was hysterical because everyone was laughing. I mean, I had no idea what was happening. And I was, I was only like in second or third grade. And I still remember it to this day in detail. They're laughing and everything, So I laughed with them. What could I do?
You were a good sport.
Inside I was a little pissed,
Yeah. Next up, you're in Washington, right, Sharon?
Oh, hi. Yeah, I'm in Washington. I've done some of the basics, blue food coloring in the toothpaste and Vaseline on the toilet seat. But the best one that I ever saw, the very best one, my friend did to his friend who had just bought a new car. And everything about it was pristine and gorgeous right off the lot. And so my friend took a bolt and put it on the floor of the front seat, the front area of the car. So that when he opened it, he went, oh, something's coming apart in my beautiful new car. And
Oh.
he spent all morning under there trying to figure out what that bolt might have come from. And I thought, oh, that was a master at work.
Yeah. There's a certain insidious quality to that one. Well, thank you, Sharon. Now, Sharon, are you going to come back to California ever or no?
I don't think so. Doesn't
Oh my
look like
God.
it.
Oh,
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm glad we're still virtual then because we get you.
Me too. Me too.
Next up, we have our other co-chair, Katie Mangan.
Hi, I'm Katie Mangan. I come from, I am unmuted. I come from Santa Rosa, California. And the best April Fool's prank that I remember, I was going to a boarding school, and the seniors in the school decided it would be fun if we all woke up before anybody else in the school did, any of the staff. And so we got up and we left the school and we went to, I don't know, like a village hall in the village and stayed there. And so everybody, the staff came to work to teach us, and we weren't there, and it was so cool. It was so fun, and they told the kitchen staff we wouldn't be there, so that we had some breakfast, I think, with us. And then finally, when we did go back to the school mid-morning, the principal and all the teachers, they had locked us out.
Oh,
Anyway, it was very fun. So we had a whole morning without any school.
quid pro quo. So next up, we have Vicki Ness.
I worked in an advertising office with some people who really liked to pull jokes. And I remember one woman who was writing in cubes, everybody had their cube. She put a little mirror off to her little wall, and we thought, okay, whatever. And what she had done was she took a $1 bill and she taped string to it, little thread. She put the $1 bill outside in the hall, and she'd be typing, watching. And as soon as somebody was like this far from picking up the $1 bill, she'd yank it back away from them. And she used to laugh and laugh and laugh. And then that would make everybody else laugh and laugh. And another time, I remember back in the day when we didn't have cell phones, down Market Street, across Market Street, we were on the 3rd floor. There was a bus stop and there was a payphone. And our boss used to wait for the bus there. And so we'd call the payphone and people would walk by, and finally somebody pick it up and say hello. And we'd say, put the guy who's who's sitting there in the bus stop on the phone. And we'd watch as the guy would go over and say, it's for you. And we'd all hang out the windows and laugh and laugh and laugh. Really pathetic, but who cares? It's fun.
I think if you did either one of those things in New York, you'd get beaten up.
Yeah. Just in San Francisco.
They do more than beat them up.
Vina, in case you haven't noticed, you are spotlit now. You're next.
Okay. Well, I have to choose between two. A friend of our son's lived in Santa Cruz, and he put a payphone booth outside his house on the, next to the sidewalk. And he had it ingeniously connected to his house. So he was inside the house. And he would, how did that work? I can't remember exactly. Anyway, people would call him needing to talk to a sleuth, and so he would carry on this conversation with people outside his house on a pretty real looking payphone.
Jeez. That's really funny. What was the other one?
Well, the other one was the trick that has gotten played on all of our kindergartners, not on April Fool's Day, but on St. Patrick's Day, where those kids come in having set up leprechaun traps the day before.
Oh,
And then the teacher will have sprinkled around gold covered rocks and put footprints on the floor. And these kids get wild with excitement. They're kindergartners, right? And they just, oh my God, it's the most exciting thing that could happen to them to have this evidence, absolutely irrefutable evidence that the leprechauns were there last night.
and then the teacher takes all the gold.
No, the kids take it home.
Oh, and then somebody has to explain to them it's not gold.
Well, or not, right?
Or
not.
Right, okay,
Or
yeah.
not.
So they just hold on to it.
Yeah.
Now, Alicia, we are so happy to have you with us tonight. Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here. I'm unmuting myself. There we go. Boy, I guess in our house, we didn't need April Fools to pull a prank. Certainly my mother didn't ever need that. She pulled some doozies. Let's see. We like to eat Mexican food. And I was particularly fond of carrots and was eating carrots all the time. And she'd lay out the food and there'd be some carrots and there'd be some beans and some hot peppers and things like that. And I looked at everything and I said, it all looks really good. So those are hot, but the carrots aren't, right? She goes, yeah, you should eat them. I did. Oh my God. Oof, they were super hot. And it was not a fun trick. I didn't really trust my mother much after that.
Yeah.
But this was just kind of her way, her generation. They would do things like that. The only other one I can remember that was really fantastic is tide pooling. It was one of the favorite things that my mom and we all like to do living in San Diego. But in order to get out to where she was in the tide pools, you had to earn the right to get out there. And the way you earned it was by being able to walk to her without stepping on any living critter. So you had to walk really careful, and so I did, made sure I didn't step on the barnacles or anything like that. And I got up to her and here was this beautiful pool. And I'm like maybe 8, I think, or 7, something like that, pretty young. And I'm just marveling at the color and Mom, what's the one with those long like fingers, those green ones? She said, oh, that's a sea anemone. I said, oh God, it's beautiful. She said, well, you should touch it. No, I don't want to touch it. She said, you should touch it. No, I don't want to touch it. Just do it. I went, okay, Mom. And I put my hand down and it sucked on my finger. And I laughed and she laughed. It was just really great. The ocean splashing water on us. And it's a vivid memory to this day. I remember my first experience of seeing a tide pool was that. So that was a prank that turned out very nicely.
Yeah.
Mixed messages from my mother.
Yeah. Thank you.
Was I supposed to share something else? I'm here in San Anselmo in California, and I'll give you a peek.
Oh,
I
yeah, sorry
had
about your hand.
hand surgery on Monday, and I'm still a little loopy. And I just thought I saw that this was happening tonight. I thought, oh, I'll just go on and watch. I just kick back and everything. And then Katie invited me, and I went, well, actually, I do have something. So, and once again, it involves my mother. She seems to be hanging around me a lot lately. So I look forward to telling you. It's a poem that my brother and I co-wrote as a memorial to my mother. And it's a sort of a good intro to a fuller biography that I wrote for her, but I'm not doing that tonight.
We look forward to that, Alicia. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here. Thank you,
Yeah.
everyone.
We're glad to have you. And Gay, how are you?
I'm on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
When I was a really little kid, my father would, the April Fool's joke that I remember is when all of my brothers and sisters and I were sleeping, he'd get up on, I mean, we didn't put 2 and 2 together on April 1st. He just got up really early, got us all up really early, yelling, "There's a circus coming down the road. There's a circus." And we were living out in the suburbs, so it wasn't really very normal. But we all got up, you know, ready for this. Oh my God, you know, seeing something that's going to look like a circus going to, I mean, why that would even be possible, you don't even think, but it was something that you would, you really wanted to see it. And so we all run over to the window in the living room that looks out onto the street outside. And of course there's nothing. So it was kind of like, oh, you got had.
Yeah.
But it was funny, and it wasn't, it didn't go into the dark, you know, what, you know, the anger and stuff. It was just kind of like, oops, we got taken.
Yeah.
Then we
Nobody
realized it
was
was,
hurt during that one.
yeah, but it was April Fool. It was realizing it was an April Fool's joke.
Yeah, it was very.
It worked. It worked. It was really good.
Thank you, Gay.
Oh, excuse me.
And we have Genevieve.
Hi. My name is Genevieve with a G for gullible. So if you ever want to play an April Fool's joke and get away with it, have at it. I'm going to fall for it. Always have, always will. I'm briefly going to tell you a good thing that I just heard. A friend of mine happened. Her daughter called her and said, "Mom, you know, I went to a beautician to have some fillers put on my face." Parentheses, because I don't want to be all wrinkled like you, but she didn't say that. And she said, "But oh my God," she said, "something happened. It's terrible." And apparently she had learned a way to distort her face
Oh, God.
on a camera. And so she said, look at the picture. And and her mom sees this text and she's, oh, you know, bloody, you know, her lips are super big, her eyes, her eyebrows, everything. It's just like, whoosh. And one said, oh my God, you've got to do something. Maybe you're going to tell them to take that stuff off. What did they fill it with? Okay, so April Fools. But this story is more about my mom, because my mom, if you met her, had always been a very sweet, polite, courteous, whatever, never can do anything bad. But she and her siblings were hell on wheels when they were kids, especially her next brother. And we always grew up hearing of all the stuff that they did in Mexico. So Alicia, I'm thinking of you. But when we were living in Guadalajara, my mom was already a young mother with several kids. They had a birthday party and there was one kid who was just a brat and a bully and full of himself. And so they were gonna play pin the tail on the donkey. And the mothers decided to teach this kid a lesson. So they told the kids, you know what? We don't want you guys to go around with a tax with a little tail. So you just go to the donkey. This is all in Spanish. And you point on the burro, you know, we'll have you blindfolded and you point where you would have put the tail and then we'll put the tail. So each kid is going up and getting blindfolded and here and, you know, putting it in the ear and putting it in all sorts of places as you do when you've been spun around and blindfolded and you're a kid. And the moms would dutifully put the tail in the position. So they get this one kid. Now, I must let you know that there were a couple of children who were still in diapers at the time, and they were participating in the, you know, in the party, but obviously not pinning the tail on the donkey. So this little brat goes up and he's all full of himself. He's gonna be, you know, I have no problem. I'm gonna find the tail of the donkey. So they said, go ahead. And they spin him around blindfolded and they push him toward the donkey. And he goes, ooh. And my mom and her friends, her neighbor friends, had decided to put where the donkey would have been a jar of brown mayonnaise. And when he thought for sure that he had stuck his finger in a pile of baby poop.
Oh.
Now they were going to teach him a lesson, you know, maybe they touched him, knocked him down a notch or two, but I want to know if he's a serial killer now, because I don't know if he ever outlived that. If my mother did that, it would have been considered child abuse in this country, for God's sake. But for me, the biggest quandary was when I was given a surprise birthday party at lunchtime in my elementary school. around fourth grade, I kept on being away in the hospital and coming back after a long time. So I was kind of like a little bit of a star. Everybody wanted to be nice to me on my birthday. But I wasn't aware of what they decided to do. They decided to give me prank gifts. I had no idea what prank gifts were all about.
Yeah.
And I was so polite that as I unfolded every prank gift, I said, oh, thank you very much. Thank you so much. That's very nice. Well, thank you very much. And one of them that I remember was a toothpick with a pretty little ribbon around it. And I still feel indebted to the person who gave it to me.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
What do you say? I thought, this is very strange. These customs in this country, they give toothpicks wrapped with a ribbon. Be sure to express your gratitude, Neha.
Well, thank you, Genevieve. And Val, would you like to open your camera and share with us, or are you just listening tonight?
I can open my mic, but I'd rather keep my camera off since I'm enjoying the.
Yeah, that works. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, I like having the dark around here, so it would just be a big black screen of the very dark room.
That's fine.
But yeah, I don't have as exciting April Fool's Day pranks as a lot of folks here. I feel like there's some really amazing pranksters out there that like you could almost assemble a wonderful book of all these, but you couldn't hand it out because then people would get some ideas. My family was always more of like a verbal prank family, and so the April Fool's Day pranks that, I remembered doing, and I don't even remember what they were specifically, but what would happen is, you'd get up on April 1st, and sometimes you'd look at the calendar and somebody else would look at the calendar. And whoever was aware of what day it was would say something to somebody else with a perfectly straight face. And it would be, something that could be conceivably true. Like, oh, yeah, we've got to go to this doctor's appointment, or, oh, did you hear about so-and-so, and it would be all done with the perfectly straight faces you're doing right things, and you're thinking, gosh, wow, we've got this thing happening, or, you'd be getting ready, and then somebody would shout, April Fools, and this would happen, 3 or 4 times over the course of the day till people realized, like, that somebody was, trying to prank them. So it was pretty low-key stuff, really, for my family. But I was vegan for a while, and there was this wonderful vegan chef who I would follow on YouTube, and she could make anything. And so what she would do on April Fools is she would make food that looked like one thing, but it would taste like another. So like Alicia told the story of her mother with the spicy carrots. So what she did for her husband one morning is she made a taco, but it was actually like a sweet, kind of thing. So it was like the taco shell was like an ice cream, thing. And then the inside was, lots of sweet things. And she lays it out for him for lunch. She's like, oh, here's your lunch. But it tasted good. So you watch him go, huh, oh, okay. It's dessert, not lunch. But, so those are the things that I heard. Not as exciting.
No, that's pretty exciting. An ice cream taco? Are you kidding? Now, Jesse, would you like to share? Jesse, are you there?
I left a little chat. I can't talk. I'm at work. Thank you for the
Okay.
opportunity. I made a little post earlier, but that's okay.
Oh, great. Okay, we'll
But
look back in the chat. We're glad you're here.
I'm glad I'm here too. Thank you so much.
Of course. And Meg, Katie, have I missed anybody? Did Mary want to share tonight?
And she
she
did
didn't.
not too, so that's okay. She's been listening. She's
Okay.
having a good time with it.
Wonderful.
you
We're
have
glad you're
everybody.
here, Mary. So I am going to turn it over for some announcements to Katie, who is right here.
Okay. So the Bay Area Storytelling Festival is this Saturday. So you can go in person or online, and you can obviously get tickets through SAC. So please support that. The Sierra Storytelling Festival is going to be in July from the Friday the 8th to the 9th. And that's always a beautiful festival to go to. The San Francisco Free Folk Festival apparently is going to happen in July. They said they put out details mid-April. They're not sure if it's going to be in person or online. The National Storytelling Festival is October the 7th to the 9th. And I think if you want to get the early bird special, you need, those tickets are available until this Friday, the 15th.
Mm.
And then Vicky Ness, our own Vicky, has a workshop on Saturday, the April the 30th. Vicky, would you like to tell us about that?
Sorry. Yeah, it's called Giving Vision, Voice to Your Visions. And it's a 2-hour workshop at 10 o'clock on Saturday, April 30th. It's $15. And it's basically some exercises and methods for creating your own stories in a very safe environment. And there are exercises you can use later to create your stories from the seeds of those images that are inside you and let them grow and trellis up into a story. And I will put my email address in the chat. That's what I'll do. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Vicky. And that's all the announcements I have. Does anybody else have an announcement?
Katie, I thought I would mention that on the 23rd of April, there is that liars contest. I believe that it's basically put on by the Sacramento Storytelling Guild. I understand that there is money prizes on this particular one. $100 for the first person, $50 for the second, and the third is membership in the Sacramento group. So it's kind of, I heard a good liar story today, guys. So hey, maybe you want to get in on that. And then the second thing is a little bit earlier. That's on April 20th, and that is, excuse me, the genre storytelling series is going to be doing a presentation with historical stories. And I believe somebody on this, Genevieve, is that you that is going to be participating in that particular one?
Yes.
Yeah. So our own Genevieve will be there too. So, that's going to be a lot of fun. So the key to all of these is register early, because you don't want to have to mess with that when you're trying to get in into the session. But I'm sure it's all going to be a lot of fun. And you can find the information on the SAC website.
Great, thank you. So I think that's it. That gets back to you, Brandon.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to kick off our second part of the program. We have 4 signups. We may not get to the all of them, but please welcome to our virtual stage, Ellie Shiva.
You know what? Can Alicia go now? And then, because she doesn't, it's a rare treat to have her.
Yeah.
And then I can go afterwards if there's time.
Absolutely.
Okay? Or next month. Yeah. Thank you, Alicia. I've been waiting.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. That's really sweet.
Welcome.
I hope I can live up to it.
You will.
Okay. Let me, one more adjustment there. All right. Growing up in the Depression era, my mother, Alice Effie Johns Rettes, flourished into many roles as a welder for the Legion of Rosie the Riveters, a award-winning artisan, a masterful gardener, and she was an honored educator, counselor, and docent for the San Diego City Schools and for the Balboa Museums. She was also a biracial wife in the 1940s and mother of 3. I think one of her exciting roles was as a field researcher for many organizations, in particular the evolutionary ecological expedition to Australia for a study of the sex life of a nutmeg tree. Mother was bizarre. Alice, my mother Alice, loved to play the piano and to sing. One of her favorite quotes is, life without music would be a mistake. And so I begin. Around the world, Alice did go on trains or river rafts. She would just flow. Alice traveled in a Model T Ford on planks across the desert floor. She flew in the first jumbo jets and then rode a camel in Australia and camped in canvas tents. In the outback she'd be as a field researcher, counting rain beetles on a nutmeg tree. She paddled a birch canoe, flew in a monoplane too. At 75, she went into overdrive, racing with Parnelli Jones, driving and laughing in the sweetest of tones. Now, Lady Luck favored her with surprises. She'd buy 10 tickets and win 6 of the prizes. Never one to be idle, and a wizard with a needle. She made award-winning crafts as if it was an easy task. Crossword puzzles followed her around. She loved to solve them like a kid loves a good clown. Water skiing, swimming, boating, tide pooling. Her love for the ocean was big, no fooling. Sharing it with children was simply a must, and she did it without a fuss. To the seashore, she would drive them in her yellow Dodge Dart wagon, exploring the tide pools and the marine life inside them. And oh, how she loved her seaside home and playing her baby grand with its beautiful tone. She hosted wonderful parties for family and many a friend. Oh, such good food and live music. We wish it would never end, but really it doesn't, you see, because the spirit of Alice the Adventurer is in the hearts of you and in me. She's flying in the heavens, laughing and singing with every star. Oh, Alice, she's on the greatest adventure by far.
Whoa.
Thank you. Yay. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Alicia. Did you compose that?
Yes.
Wow, that was.
Yeah. I wrote her biography too, and both the biography and the poem won first place in those 2 different categories at the Marin County Fair.
Oh.
And I recently was invited to tell for the Women by the Decade, a series. I should try and get the information out because maybe some of the other women would like to do this. It's for women tellers to tell about a woman that they actually knew in these different decades. So the other night it was from the 1920s, and the next one is in the 50s and the 70s. 6 Feet Under is one of the producers, and I don't know, I'm one-handed, so I don't know how quickly I can type. I can't type very quickly, actually.
Yeah.
I'll try to get the information to you if you're not familiar with it, because there apparently there's still room. If any of you know of a woman that you found interesting in any of these decades, you can tell about it.
That's terrific.
And it's a live performance in Connecticut, and they did a virtual. Unfortunately, they weren't able to resolve the technical issues, and I was telling, and I tried to, that you're getting feedback, so I tried to tell it in a way that would maybe work, and I'm hearing the feedback, and I'm trying to pause and then come in, and then I hear laughter, But it's, and then I do expect a laugh on one of the lines, but the line I happened to be telling was not one you necessarily. So like, just what's happening? You know, so they aborted. So thank you very much for letting me tell it tonight, because I feel like I just released a whole bunch of energy that had been sitting and didn't get fully expressed. So thanks a lot.
It came through loud and clear. Thank you.
Oh, good. Well, you know, I'm actually encouraged by it. It's going to be one of the first things I start telling of my personal stories, because it's a lot easier to tell about my mother than myself. So it was really nice to be able to share that with you, with all of you tonight. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming tonight.
You're welcome.
Ellie Shiva, are you willing to
sure.
go now? Thank you.
And there must be some connection here, Alicia, because my mother's name was Alice. She gave me that as a middle name. So instead of Elizabeth Ann, I'm Elizabeth Alice.
You know, that's, you know, I'm not kidding when I say my mother is in the area. Because I'm getting like your mother, Alice, and I'm watching shows, Alice, and then Alice keeps coming up. And when I went in for my surgery on Monday, I thought, you know, they're going to put me under. That's kind of like dying. What if I communicated with my mom? And so I sort of programmed that to happen. They put me under. And when I came out, I said, I love plants. And I went, why am I saying that? Why am I saying I love plants? And so I asked, I said, so were the surgeons and the crew, were they talking about plants? And I said, no, why would they be talking about plants? They weren't talking about plants. So I think I did it. My mother was a master gardener. She loved plants. So anyway, it's very interesting, Elizabeth, that Alice is in the area.
Yeah. So do I have time?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I am 10 years old and I'm hiding totally at the foot of my bed under the covers. Alice, my mother, comes to the door and knocks. Come on now, Betty, it's time to get up. You know that I've got to get you off to school, and you know that I don't drive, so we've got to get you that school bus. I'm not going, Mom. You're not going? Why? Are you feeling sick? No, not sick. Well, then what's wrong? Well, look at all the clothes I have strewn around my room, and I don't have anything that's green. And you know, Mom, I'm going to get pinched all over by everybody in my class. It's St. Patrick's Day, you forgot. And I don't have anything green to wear, and I can't go because I'm the new kid on the block. All the other kids have been together since kindergarten, and I just been there for 3 months. So they don't want to hurt their friends. They're going to come and pinch me, all 25 of them. Oh my goodness, says my mother. Well, I'll tell you what, honey, get up, wash your face, brush your teeth, get some clothes on, please. And I give you permission to wear any of your dresses that you want. It doesn't have to be a school dress because I know you're unhappy. Thanks, Mom. Okay. And I think I have a solution, but I have to use a telephone. So while you're getting ready and eating, I'm going to make a phone call. Of course, there was no cell phones in those days. So she was busy on the phone, I'm eating and I'm finished. And then she says, good, you're eating, you're through eating. Come out on the porch with me. And I said, okay. And then she looks, we have a new house that we've only been in 5 months. But there's a little hill up in front of us going, like the next house up, but we have commercial half acres. This is in San Diego County, by the way. And so she says, look at the hill. You see that house?
Storytelling.
The first house. And that's owned by Jimmy O'Toole. And he's from Ireland. And I just called him. Now we're friends from the garden club. And I just called him and he's going to help you. He's got something special you can take in. Okay, Mom, but I don't know them. I never met him. What if he asks me to come in the house? I know I'm not supposed to go in the house as a stranger. He's just going to be in the garden, sweetie. Ken, I didn't quite understand why I wasn't supposed to come into the house, but it sounded scary, whatever it was going to be. So I said, okay. So I would have just practically dragged my feet going up the hill, but I didn't want to miss that darn bus. So I got up there at the time and said, well, hello. Now he is old. Now it's not like a 10-year-old thinking a 19-year-old is old. This was a guy with a white beard. So yeah, he was old. And he says, well, I hear you need something to celebrate my national holiday. Now I am from Ireland, as you know. You are the real Ireland? Yes, indeed. And I tell you, look over here. On this flat bed, there's no flowers, my dear, but look at it and it's all green. And you look at it, tell me what you see. So I'm curious. So I go over and I look and I said, they're 3-leaf clovers. No, not clovers. They are 3-leaf shamrocks. And they just come from Ireland. Last time I was there, I put some seeds in my pocket and got them through the customs. And now look, we've got a whole, it's almost as big as a mattress full of beautiful green leaves. Now, I want you to walk around. I know you have to get on the bus, but you have a few more minutes. You can do this. Walk around the whole bed of the plants and you find one that will speak to you. Speaking plants, but they're so beautiful. So I very studiously look at each one that I can see. Very studiously go around all the way. And then I come back, and look, Mr. Jimmy, come here. This is the one I want right here. And he looks down and he squats and he says, oh my goodness, my dear, that is marvelous luck. That isn't a 3-leaf clover, it's a 4-leaf clover. So, well, may I have it? Thank you. Oh yes, but be sure to pinch it down by the ground. You don't want to pull off the leaves. So I very carefully balance myself so I won't crush any of the other shamrocks. And I reach out and I put it down and I pluck it up and I say, thank you. And I look down and there's my mom waving my lunchbox, which didn't have pictures on them in those days. They were just solid color, blue and silver stripes. Come on, Betty, you're gonna, come on. So I'm running down, Mom, look what he did. He's so nice. And she says, wow. And she has a safety pin. Now she knew all along what was gonna happen. She got a safety pin and she pins it right on my shoulder of my dress. And then I said, but Mom, they might tear it off. Don't worry, I've solved that. So she takes a scarf and she wraps it sort of around my neck and over to cover it up so that I can get it into school without anybody tearing it off me. And I say, Mom, you are the best mom in the world. Thank you, Mr. Jimmy. And so I run and I get in and I let the other kids at the bus stop get up before me. And Sam, the friendly bus driver, knew that I was newbie and that I would be taunted by anybody on the bus. So he had reserved a seat right next to the driver's seat so nobody could mess with me. So he drives down to Encinitas to the elementary school and I get out, but I'm a little afraid. But then I see Miss Seeger, our 5th grade teacher, was there to help me, assist me into getting into the room without being attacked, so to speak. And she has us all sit down and then she looks at me and she says, now, did anybody bring anything in to show and tell today? Nice. Look around. Oh, well, me, teacher. So she says, well, come on up, show us what you have. And the other kids are sort of, yeah, right. So I go up and I slide the scarf off and I say, this is a real authentic shamrock from Ireland, and it has 4 leaves for good luck. Most of the others have only 3 leaves. And they perk up because they have done the whole thing since kindergarten about looking for the leprechauns surprises and stuff. So they know what a shamrock's going to look like. So they all have to, Miss Seeger has them all line up, and they all line up, and they have 2 seconds. They can look at it, and then the next person comes. I was the queen of the ball that day. Oh, they were all so servanting for me. They were just really wonderfully. And that turned into being my favorite class in elementary school ever after that. Thank you. That's a true story.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Ellie Shiva. And I remember that could be really traumatic. If you don't have green on, you can be punished all day long for it. It's really rough. So you not only had green, you had kind of the essence of St. Patrick's Day.
The luck of the Irish.
You had a
Yeah,
good-
the
you had
luck
a-
of the Irish was on your side.
A green gem.
We have just enough time for a story from Katie Mangan to send us off into the dream world.
Brandon, are you sure you don't want to?
Yes,
tell yours?
I'm quite sure. Yeah.
Okay, this is very kind of you. In Eduardo's world, winter begins in November with the cold and the rain. And Mother Earth, she sleeps. And it is in December, when the snow begins to fall, that Mother begins to dream under her thick white blanket. And this particular year, Mother dreamed big, and she dreamed big. And so did Eduardo. Because of the snow, travel is impossible. And so everybody stays home. And they begin to plan for the new year in the spring. And it's this particular year that Eduardo realizes he can hand over some of his responsibilities, in fact, many of them. So to his daughter, Rose, who is becoming a gifted healer and shaman like her great-grandmother, Eduardo gives her all the responsibilities of the walled garden, where the healing plants and herbs are grown and tended to. And to George, his manager, he gives all the responsibilities of the farm, the orchards, the farm animals, the kitchen garden. So by the time spring arrives, Eduardo is in the very unusual position of not having anything to do. And then something unexpected happens. George sees a bear walking in one of the country lanes. Oh, Eduardo, I was so surprised. There was this bear standing on its hind legs. I wasn't scared because I knew it couldn't see me because its eyesight's so poor. But it was smelling the air and it was listening. What was it listening and looking for? Well, Eduardo knew. George, the bear is looking for me. I must go to the deep woods, into the forest, and talk to Bear. Now, the deep woods was a mysterious and very magical place. He quickly packed his backpack with a few clothes, some food, and a blanket, and off he went. And as he walked down the garden path, George could see all the cares and the worries and the responsibilities really just slipping off his shoulder down his back and disappearing. And as Eduardo crossed the meadow into the woods, George could see that his stride was longer and lighter. For many miles, Eduardo walked on familiar paths within the woods. But at some point, he came to what he would call the very heart or the sacred part of the forest. And this is where it seemed the light changed, became golden, colors, deep and rich. And time as we know it fell away. He found a spring and he drank from it long and deep. And it quenched his thirst and also his hunger. And as the light began to fade, he noticed a squirrel, and it crossed the path in front of him and climbed up a tree. And then it ran along one of the branches, and then another branch. And it was in this half light, this betwixt and between time, this twilight time, that Eduardo could see that the branches actually made a path, a roadway through the forest for all the forest animals. And so he climbed the tree and began taking this path that the squirrel had taken. And just as light was fading, Eduardo came to a bird's nest. It was the biggest bird's nest he'd ever seen. It was about 4 foot around. It was beautifully made, and it was lined with the brightest green moss he'd ever seen. It was so inviting that he stepped down into it, and he took his blanket out of his backpack and curled up in a ball and fell into a deep and long sleep. When he finally woke up, he looked around, and not far from the nest stood an eagle, the biggest eagle he had ever seen, the size of a man. Eduardo, you know you're late, don't you? Late? Late for what? For them down there. Look, they're waiting for you. Eduardo followed his gaze, and he could see Bear down there, standing on her hind legs, sniffing and listening. And then there was another being, but he couldn't quite make it out. But they were down there on the valley floor, and he couldn't quite figure out how to get to them. Oh, don't worry. Let me help you out, Eduardo. Come on, hang on to me legs. Oh, for goodness sake, don't let go. I'll fly you down. So the eagle flew him down and dropped him beside Bear. She smiled. How nice of you, Eduardo, to drop by. Now we're all here. I want you to meet Mother, the great mother, has sent a special messenger, her emissary. Come. And there, under this enormous oak tree, was this being, almost impossible to describe. It was full of air, of ice, of fire, but at its very heart was love, divine love. And so the four of them sat down and began a conversation that lasted for hours, for days, for weeks. And it was one morning that Eduardo felt a little cold, and he could hear geese flying overhead. And he looked up and he watched, and they were flying from the north to the south. And he thought, how could that be? Bear smiled at him. Eduardo, we've been together throughout the spring, throughout the summer and the fall. It's almost winter. The geese they're flying home from north to south. It's time for us all to say goodbye and to go home. But I don't want to say goodbye. I know. But look at me. Look at my thick fur. Even I, Eduardo, I have to find my snug cave in the winter. I have to go and winter there. And so Eduardo reluctantly said goodbye to all the forest beings. And he began his long journey home. And just as he was leaving the last of the trees and walking out through the meadow, he noticed that the first snow of winter began to fall. And when he was on the garden path, there was George. Oh, Eduardo, my dear friend, you've come home. Oh, we thought you'd gone forever. Oh, Rose will be so overjoyed to see you. She's in the kitchen. I'll catch up with you later. It was hard for Eduardo to walk into the house, to be confined by the walls and the windows and the doors.
Hmm.
He silently opened the kitchen door and walked in. And there was Rose, deep in concentration, making a beautiful healing tincture. But she finally realized that he was there with her. And she looked up, and with a shout of joy, she rushed into his arms, and he gave her the biggest bear hug ever. And she put her face into his chest, and she breathed in. And she could smell the forest, pure, pristine. An experience that you and I may never have in this lifetime. And she asked him thousands and thousands of questions. And he just held her tight and was silent. And finally, she too was silent. And it was in the silence she began to understand the answers to her questions. Blessings, abundance, and healing to you all.
Hmm.
Oh, Katie, that was wonderful. I could tell exactly which lines Vel was going to quote in the chat. I was like, there's one, and there's one. So beautiful.
Thank
We
you.
had a lot of wonderful stories tonight. Thank you, Bev. It's great. We have our home tellers like Ellie Shiva and Vicky. And we had some special guests. Thank you for coming, Alicia. And of course, Genevieve and Sharon, who is, Sharon may have gone into her snug winter cave. I can't spotlight her if she doesn't have her camera on. But who am I missing now?
I think you have everyone.
I
don't you?
think so. What a wonderful evening we've had. And forgive me if I'm missing you. I can't always see everybody. But I'm looking forward to our next meeting, and that will be in May. We're already getting close to summer. So I hope you have a wonderful April. Looks like we're in for some showers and then some flowers, I suppose. So that's something to look forward to. Good night, everybody. Thank you for your stories. Such an honor to be with you.
Thank
Come
you.
back, Alicia.
Thank you.
It's 11:58. I'm gonna turn into a pumpkin in 2 minutes if I don't get to bed.
Good night, Bev.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Beautiful
Thank
stories.
you
One
all.
of my favorite groups. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next month, I hope.
Fabulous stories, everybody. Thank you.
Really lovely.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
How do I get out of here now?